As part of our meditation this evening, these astonishing words of the great Sufi poet Hafiz. I hold the lion's paw whenever I dance. I know the ecstasy of the falcon's wings when they make love against the sky. And the sun and moon sometimes argue over who will tuck me in at night. If you think I'm having more fun than anyone on this planet, you are absolutely correct. But Hafiz is willing to share all his secrets about how to befriend God. Indeed, dear ones, Hafiz is so very willing to share all his secrets about how to know the beautiful one. Oh, I hold the lion's paw whenever I dance. I hold the lion's paw whenever I dance. Who is that lion? It is the lion with whom we come face to face each and every time we move into the spiritual black hole of meditation. Where there is no fear, there's no anxiety, no loneliness, because in that state, the state of deep meditation, our natural state, we can feel that we are power itself, knowledge itself, love, compassion, and ecstasy itself. It's not a matter of struggling to attain that state. It's a matter of letting go, clearing the way, allowing the lion to come and dance with you. Watch and feel as a witness, and you will first discover how much beauty is all around you, how much love, how much protection. I have been, as some of you know, including every Saturday evening an excerpt from one of Gurdjieff's messages, writings, essays. And one of his great books is the book called Self-Knowledge and Self-Analysis, which is a translation and commentary on Shankaracharya's great work, Atmabodha. And this short statement, it's only a few paragraphs, goes right to our problem, whatever we are walking around with today, feeling this is our problem. It goes directly there. The whole evening has as its title, it just emerged from the two readings, Victory over the Mind. Victory over the mind. Because we're always doing battle with the mind. Feels like we're doing battle with people. No. People come and they go. They fight with us, we win, we lose, and it's over. But the mind continues that battle until we're exhausted. The people who are wrong somehow easily forget about it, and they're happy the next day. People who are right, and that's us, right? We can't forget it. It seems unfair, it seems unjust, and our mind won't let it go. We suffer, and we're right. They're home free, and they're wrong. So who's the enemy here? We're the enemy. And this is what Gurdjieff says is one of the causes of our being unable to his word. There's no word like this in the dictionary. And Gurdjieff was forever inventing words that seemed absolutely right. And we said, Gurdjieff, is that in the dictionary? He said, no, Webster didn't know my word. I know this word. And I was about to say, of all Gurdjieff's teachings, one that stands out for many of us is that everything stems from our identifying with our body, our mind, and our senses, instead of identifying with our true self, which is all powerful and all knowing, and never in difficulty. So he says what we need to do is his word, disidentify. Makes perfect sense. It should be in the dictionary, but it's not. So Webster didn't know everything. And neither did that other one. Who was the other one who wrote a dictionary? Well, they didn't know. That's why I don't know them. But Gurdjieff was always finding just the right word because he went to the root of a word. He would open many, many different dictionaries in different languages sometimes to get at the true root of a word. This is what he says. And when he talks about people, be sure that he's talking about each and every one of us. So listen as if he's sitting here talking to you and myself right after we presented a problem to him. He says, people are wasting their valuable days and nights in pursuit of pleasure. I'll read it again because every statement of an enlightened being is loaded with meaning and holds a message, every statement, every word, for each one of its hearers. People, that's you and myself, are wasting their valuable days and nights in pursuit of pleasure. As long as there's no longing for self-realization to find out the truth of who I am really, then one cannot come out of this hypnotic trance. There's that word, hypnotic. Where's David? David? David here? I don't see David. Okay, David came in today to the afternoon program after coming down from the Cosmic Temple, and he said, isn't that witnessing process just like hypnotherapy? I said, well, how are you feeling? Is it great? I said, well, the result may be the same, that after hypnosis you do feel very relaxed. You feel somewhat blissful after hypnosis because the mind has taken a complete rest, so the body rests. I said, but the difference is that the witness is never hypnotized. The witness is always there watching what is happening to the body and the mind and the senses. The witness is always witnessing, whereas in hypnosis, there is no separate witness observing what is happening to the mind. Man does not, oh, this is very difficult to hear, but Guruji never minced words. Man, and that's again you and myself, man does not really know love. Not really. Man does not really know devotion and unselfish service. He's talking about man in general. Oh, no doubt, people sometimes think of God, but their prayers and their worship are selfish. They're bargaining for their own comfort and pleasure. If their selfish desires are not satisfied, then either they change religions or they seek another God to make them happy in their own world, or they become atheists. Nirvanam, meaning liberation, freedom, is not to be created. It is to be realized. Realize means we don't create freedom for ourselves. We don't create liberation for ourselves because we're already free. We're already liberated. We need freedom from the mind, freedom from memory. We need freedom from worrying, all coming from the mind. So we don't need, Guruji would say, national freedom, international freedom, as much as we need inner freedom. And he says we can't create freedom, liberation for ourselves. Freedom is to be realized. But men and women wish to create their own freedom, to create it. What they want is the freedom to find everlasting satisfaction of their desires. And here's another strong statement, but we really should write this one down and keep it available always. As long as one does not love his or her true self for the sake of love alone, one cannot expect to have true love on the worldly plane. That's very powerful. Unless our love for truth, to find out who we truly are, the truth of our lives are the truth of our existence, then our search for true love on the earthly plane, the relative plane, will never end in the way we want it to. That other comes first. The love of truth. That's the name of philosophy, the meaning of philosophy, the love of truth. That has to be first. And when we're in that open, available, free state, full of compassion, full of joy, full of love for everyone, that's when we can know love in the world, on the worldly plane. And Guruji's final powerful statement, true longing, true reverence, true devotion, and true knowledge are prerequisites to meditation and self-realization. So first, through very simple means, coming to any place where your deepest feelings, your deepest spiritual longings are stirred and brought to the surface. Doesn't have to be here. This one is very nice because it's only an hour from New York. Other places are further away. Don't think our Guru didn't realize that when he looked at many properties in 1963. And when he came to this one and we told him about this one, we found it through one of the members. He said, how far a drive from New York City? Not bad, he said. They will come. How much does a train come here? We said, well, sort of. He said, train is very nice to come. How about bus from Port Authority? We said, Gurji, that's only an hour. Very good. He was a very practical man. That practical side to Gurji was what induced him against some of our best advisors to put in that wonderful swimming pool. He knew global warming was coming and we need a swimming pool. But that's one of our great attractions, the swimming pool. We thought that people would not be coming for the swimming pool. What did we know? He knew. So this ashram is only 1 hour from Manhattan and very convenient. You can drive back and forth if that's all the time you have. And people are coming from all the neighboring states. It seems to be a central meeting place now. But what Gurju said is that coming to places like this as regularly as possible, reserving time, regular time for meditation, as much as you can spare in your daily life, being with like-minded company, he said, very important, because we're affected by the frequency of others. You know that. But he was always reminding us that especially when our minds are out of order, especially when we can't seem to control behavior that we wish to control in ourselves and others, he said, take a look at the company you're keeping. With whom are you spending a great deal of time? And he said the worst company is to be in the company of your own mind, because that's always ready to gossip with you and say very bad things about everyone but itself. It never, did you notice the ego never talks about the ego? Ego never says, you know what's really bothering you? The ego never says that. It always says, you know, if you could just tell her off, I think we should write a letter, you and I, tonight. And then you're back in that incident that happened a month ago, a year ago. Why? And in the process, we're losing our peace of mind. So Gurji is saying that we have to prepare for meditation by checking to see if our longing to be free is true longing. If our reverence for an ashram like this, or a church, or any place of worship, is true reverence. Or are we just doing it to have name and fame being connected in some way to that organization? Why do we love Ananda? What's our real purpose for coming here? True reverence, true devotion, and true knowledge. Is our knowledge true knowledge? Or is it knowledge that's been true means real, authentic knowledge? Or is the majority of our knowledge, the main part of our knowledge, second-hand knowledge that we've just taken on because others have passed it along to us? So many times we're just the products, the byproducts of our family life. Whatever's been handed down generation to generation, we have become that. Even in terms of education, our understanding of real education is what we've learned from educators who do not always know what is real education, what is real knowledge. So true longing, true reverence, true devotion, and true knowledge are prerequisites to meditation, prerequisites to self-realization. That's what's needed for that final day of sudden seeing, sudden realization, self-realization. As you can hear, it always happens almost a half hour was taken with just a few paragraphs, but I've been with everyone else at this ashram, going over and over Gurji's writings, his tapes, his talks, and each time I'm overwhelmed by the legacy of truth that he left us in his writings, in his commentaries. It's more than we can possibly ever appreciate. But I realize that sometimes it's necessary to isolate one of his thoughts so that the power of it comes directly home to us. So, and it lends itself doing it this way, reading excerpts, especially in the summertime when our attention is not too strong because of the heat, and sometimes we need lighter readings, but if we're going to take anything that Gurji writes, we have to realize that we have to go into just a few paragraphs in depth. Are there any questions? Did anything, I like to ask if anything specifically jumped out at you as being particularly useful. Anything? Every time I read something, something jumps out at me. And I've been reading it for 47 years. So there must have been something. Something that was said, that I said, and whatever I say, I'm just repeating what the great masters have said. Did anyone think in terms of your own prayers? If there's any bargaining that goes on? There usually is. We may not say it, but we may think it, that, oh, if only this could be granted. If only I could have this. Or if only you just take care of these two people, then I promise. Blah, 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 blah. We do that. If we didn't do it, Sri Brahmananda wouldn't talk about it. He knew us very well. He could sit and look at you and know 3 generations in your family. How he knew that? Because they are not in time. They know the past, they know the present and the future. I'll be telling from time to time of some of the magical happenings that we just took for granted because we assumed it's Gurji. Why wouldn't this happen? But he did. He was capable of knowing all about us right now, all that led to us being this way, and all that led to our parents being that way. So, nothing? You didn't learn anything from this? Look, I'll be very easy. It's a hot night. How many, just raise your hand, felt that something new was heard tonight? Raise your hand for you. Something. See? Sometimes it doesn't dawn on you till 47 years later. Seriously. We're realizing so much. I could look at Krishna Devi and Bharati and Karmananda and Hanuman. We hear these things, Kiranavali. We heard them. And sometimes it's not until years later that we say, that's what he meant when he said that. The bargaining that goes on in our lives and the disappointment that comes. You see, sometimes we don't know we're bargaining when we're praying, when we're meditating even. We don't know we're doing it. How do we know that really we were secretly bargaining, although not admitting it? What tells us that yes, we were? We get a very clear indicator afterwards. You know?
Maybe get angry afterwards.
Angry, disappointed too. Angry.
Because you don't get what you want.
because you don't get what you want. So that means even though it doesn't look like bargaining, but whether it's an angry reaction, because after all, you know, you've been praying and you really plan to do more service than you're doing. If it doesn't happen, there's more likely some anger, but more likely a feeling of disappointment, because you felt you were really praying with a sincere, true heart, true reverence, you thought. But if there's a sense of disappointment, it means there's some expectation, right? It's a kind of funny bargaining. Our son the other day was trying to explain what a takeaway is in business. I still don't get it, but I think we're doing that. It's a takeaway, that we're given something. I still don't have it right. I'm not going to try. Anybody hear the term takeaway? They do it in selling, in sales. They offer you something, and then the person's reluctant. Marvin, you're going to correct me, I know. And then you say, oh, never mind, I want to show you something else. And you show them something less beautiful or less in value. Am I right, Marv? Sounds good. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not a salesperson at heart. But it's getting the person to say, oh, show me that other one again, because you took it away. It's a takeaway. But you took it away knowing that you're showing something less beautiful, that the person's going to say, what was that other one again? Bring it back. So I still don't think I got it right. It doesn't sound right. All right, I'm going to get right to this, because I had mentioned that since I'm an old-timer in choosing readings, I usually know the season for the very powerful readings, very challenging readings. The seasons are the fall and the winter. So I was very surprised when this came into my hands for a warm, at the end of a hot week in July. This is from a book of questions and responses of questioners who came to Sri Nisargadatta's, I don't know, ashram or living quarters. But it's not I am that. These are conversations that took place in the final months of Sri Nisargadatta's life. So he never answered anything lightly, but you can imagine how charged these responses are, because he knew. He was another one who knew he did not have long to live. He was, although rather harsh in his demeanor, he loved people, and he loved them so much that even with cancer of the throat, he continued to speak and answer questions in a whisper. That's all he could manage. But whereas other people would just be confined to bed, he held his daily meetings with people and even managed to yell at them in a whisper, because he was always yelling. But when I read this book, the book is called The Ultimate Medicine. The Ultimate Medicine. When I read this exchange and his rather long answers for Maharaj, I only could marvel at the depth of his love for humanity. Maharaj, many sages in the past have proved their victory over mind. You're going to hear two remarkable examples, but some examples about our own Guru. Many sages in the past have proved their victory over mind. For example, there was Mirabai. I sometimes call Krishna Devi Mirabai. because both Mirabai and Krishna Devi were very great devotees of their lords, their gurus, and all their songs were dedicated to that devotion, their love. For example, there was Mirabai. Mirabai was a great saint. She was given poison by her husband, but nothing happened to her. Why was she given poison? Because she just was not interested in householder life. She couldn't keep her attention there. She was lost in ecstatic love for her Krishna, her great inner guru. And in those days, it was considered a sin not to be devoted to your husband and to your family and to your responsibilities. He gave her poison, but nothing happened to her. And then there was the story of another sage. This one was very ill and had not taken medicine for a very long time. And all his disciples were very worried. So they said to him, "You must take medicine. You must take medicine." He said to them, "Okay, bring all your medicines." And when they brought all the medicines, he gulped down the whole collection. And once again, they were worried. But again, nothing happened. Now, this also is victory over mind. Victory over mind is one thing. A better expression would be stabilizing in the self, conviction about your true nature. Then he will go on to say, I remember when Gurji's health was poor, so many of the devotees and the guests would bring him his or her favorite remedy, homeopathic or traditional remedy or what his mother made. Everybody was bringing these, and Gurji was a medical doctor. He certainly knew what he needed, what was best for him. But to our shock, whatever people brought him, for the most part, he would take. And at the end of the day, we would say, Gurji, are you all right? Oh, yes. I could swallow any poison. It's all right. My system can tolerate. How? We'll hear tonight. One common characteristic of these sages is that they know what they are. They identify themselves with the Supreme Self. So if somebody tells them about birth, death, sickness, they don't accept all that. They don't believe it because they have no doubts about what they really are. I remember one time we had a board member. She's not here anymore. She passed away. She looked fine. She had great energy, but she was convinced she had cancer. She just felt it had been in her family, and so she was sure she had it. She asked Gurji. He said, you do not have cancer. Not at this time. You do not have it. But she was so obsessed with the thought that she had to prevent it, catch it. She went from doctor to doctor, and Gurji came to know about it, and he said, you know, if you keep looking, the fear and anxiety will bring on potential cancer. If you keep looking, one doctor is bound to find it. And then will you be happy? You have to think of the results. I am doctor. I am telling you to stop looking, because if you keep looking, you will find it, because you're looking with great fear and great anxiety. And he told us that he had performed many, many autopsies. I don't know, 1,000 autopsies, 2,000 autopsies in India. And he found that some cancers had been in the body, tumors in the body 20 years. And the people had died of other illnesses, heart attack or tuberculosis or something. They were elderly. And he said, there are some, yes, there's some people die from cancer that has spread, but in many cases, people die of fear, and they have a heart attack first. Happened with Marv's sister. She learned she had a mild form of cancer, and a few days later had a sudden coronary. And she'd been fine, no problems. Doctors were just doing preventative measures, but some people are very afraid of it. Doesn't mean you don't go to the doctor. Of course, go to the doctor. But if the doctor says there's nothing there, the tests are negative, don't insist that you know, and keep looking to find a doctor who will agree with you. There are many people like that. How many of you know people who look for a doctor who will agree with their own diagnosis? Yeah, that's so silly. We all know them. Some of them don't admit to that, but that's what they're looking for, a doctor who says you're sick and you need to take care. And then you get attention. So I hope you understand, don't neglect anything, but don't obsess about things that have not been diagnosed as something serious. And you'll find out why in a minute. Visitor. I'm a doctor. You're going to put me out of business, he says to Maharaj. I'll go home and tell my patients who come to see me that it's all in their heads. Is that what you want me to say? Listen how Maharaj just jumps completely out of this man's question and takes it to a higher level. Maharaj, of all the statements that I have heard, I have not accepted any except my Guru's, that I am Brahman, Supreme Consciousness. That's the only acceptable statement to me. A man came here from Baroda and gave me some number, some ticket, and said, aha, you will become a millionaire overnight with this ticket. I said, don't give me that. Give that to some other people who are here. Because tomorrow, in the same manner, you will tell me, you are going to die. So if I'm going to become a millionaire, I can die also. This is of no value to me. People who tell me this is my ticket for a million, or I am going to die, this is my astrology. It's of no value to me. So many people have come, including many doctors. They have said so much to me. I've just looked at them and I've ignored whatever they told me. We as concepts, very strong. He says we're only concepts, all of us. We as concepts accept them and make them, their concepts, our own. It has become very difficult for me to reject them. I'm not the product of my parents. I'm not. They have not created me. I have come about spontaneously, and he means as pure consciousness. He's saying, I'm not the body. That's what my parents created. I'm the product of my parents coming together. But that's not what I am. My parents have not created me, what I am. I have come about spontaneously. In your case, you just think whether your parents attach those eyes here, put the nose there, and the mouth. Did they do that? You know, with plastic surgery, we can have any kind of parents. We can have plastic surgeons put our nose a little up, put our eyes a little out. He's saying it didn't happen because your parents were the ones who genetically created you. Just think, did your parents attach your eyes there and put your nose there and the mouth? Whatever information I have prior to birth, that's the only correct information. This man went up to only equivalently the 5th grade, and how he speaks. Every sentence makes you gasp. I'll say it again. Whatever information I have prior to the birth of my body, that's the only correct information. Everything else is of no value to him, no interest to him. We need some knowledge so that we can function and take care of ourselves in the world. But this man, his last weeks, maybe days, I don't remember, before he left his body, he doesn't need information from doctors. All he needed to know was, I am Brahman. I am supreme consciousness. And that's our knowledge before the birth of our body. And it's our knowledge after the death of the body. In this world, he says, I tell people whatever is correct. I need not read the scriptures to learn from them. But prior to what is called my birth, whatever knowledge I already had, I'm getting confirmation of that knowledge in the scriptures. That's the value of the scriptures, to remind us of what we already know. Something goes off when we chant, even chant Sanskrit that we don't understand. We are learning from the vibration of Sanskrit. Something happens when I hear the commentary or the translation of all the Upanishads. I just feel as though I'm coming alive, being born instantly, just listening. It happens every time Bharati chants in the beginning of each satsang. All tiredness washes away from me because that's our original language. And it's bathing us. We may not think we understand it, we know it. That's our knowledge prior to our birth. Our mind doesn't have that memory, but our cells do. That's why we're happy listening to Sanskrit. I'm just going to read this through because I have only 5 minutes. In this world, it's common practice for human beings to ask others for knowledge in both worldly and spiritual matters. And from that knowledge, second-hand knowledge, they try to live. Knowledge gathered from others, not their own. People learn whatever they are taught. What they were prior to being taught, nobody gives attention to. Whatever you can forget cannot be the eternal. Whatever you forget cannot be the eternal. It cannot be the truth. That's why you cannot forget your true state. And that's why you cannot remember it either. Whatever you forget is not the truth. Just remember that. People come here to ask questions, but what do they know in order to ask questions? Do they have any true knowledge of themselves? Gurji was just talking about the need for true knowledge, remember? True reverence. Do people have true knowledge in order to ask questions? Do they have any knowledge, real knowledge of themselves? Do they have any real knowledge? Whatever they have read, heard, or have been taught, they just regurgitate. We identify ourselves with the name given us. And what is that name? That name is whatever occurred to our parents. We're so much attached to that name. We act with it constantly in the world. And this name, I am so-and-so, is just an accident. The word that occurred to their minds is my name. And in this accidental thing, I'm taking my form. You see this lady here, indicating someone listening. This lady here usually tells her husband what she has heard at these talks. Today, it's going to be very difficult for her, because this knowledge is beyond language. How can she put this into words? Normally, the thought flow is continuous, always there. But how much of your thought flow is useful to you? Of all these thoughts, take only those that are useful to you. Sometimes I have to shout at thoughts to get out. And I actually say, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Fewer than 1 in 1,000 people will ever wonder what is the use of all these thoughts that are just flowing. Visitor. Well, very few stop to think about thinking. Maharaj, this is what's most important. Maharaj, when thought has no customers, thought vanishes. And there's no thought. If we don't buy into the thinking that we do, they just disappear, these thoughts. But as I said in the afternoon program, our minds do not stop haranguing us because we're still interested in these memories and these thoughts. If we were convinced that they're all illusory, all unreal, and useless, a waste of our time, as he said, when thought has no customer, someone who's interested in it, thought vanishes. There's no more thought bothering you if you're no longer bothered by that thought. It just disappears. There's more, but that seems such a wonderful note to end on. That's how we obtain victory over the mind. So I can't ask for questions because there's no time. I think we should just have a few minutes of silence, and then we'll walk over to hear some beautiful music of Steve Gorn's. This is just as important as all those powerful, extraordinary words of both Sri Brahmananda's and Sri Nisargadatta's Maharaj. Because this is the time we clear the mind of all thought and just attune ourselves to the inner dance. Deep within us is all the knowledge we need, because we are that knowledge itself. Take a very deep breath, breathe in deeply, and on the exhalation, feel as though you're releasing all language, all memories, all identifications, and just feel yourself vulnerable now. Just let go and allow this moment and your beingness. Feel how wonderfully alive your cells and organs and tissues, everything reborn by just returning to our origin, supreme consciousness. I ask during these few seconds to give thanks to Sri Brahmananda. I don't say it every week, but I feel it every week. Because this ashram and the happiness we find in this ashram and the return to our roots that occurs in this ashram were all Gurji's gifts to us. This ashram was his vision, and a lot of years of sacrifice on his part went into creating this sanctuary for all of us and this place of learning true learning, for true knowledge. Krishna Devi, would you lead us in our traditional prayer? Vamata chapita tvameva tvameva bandhus trasakha tvameva tvameva vidya duravinam tvameva tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Thank you, Krishna Devi. It's a lovely prayer because it reminds us that that inner Guru is our mother, our father, our friend, our all in all. Everything we need. The role that we need, we have it all within as our inner teacher. And we can feel that inner teacher once we relax.